Follow Yachting World's Deputy Editor David Glenn on a 3,500-mile expedition cruise aboard the 180-foot super yacht Adèle as she sails from the Falkland Islands to South Georgia and Rio de Janeiro.
We begin in a very windy Port Stanley on East Falkland, where Adèle lies to her 2 anchors just off the town. Getting ashore is becoming increasingly difficult in a breeze which eventually tops more than 80 knots and later strands us in the world's most southerly city for 30 hours. It at least gives us a chance to see a bit of the island, and local guide Tony Smith takes us on a fascinating 2-hour Land Rover ride across the island's peaty terrain to a rockhopper penguin colony at Cape Bougainville, where sea lions also roam. Tony, born and bred on the Falklands, also provides us with a unique perspective of the Falklands War, the 25th anniversary of which will be marked in June. We eventually get away in a northerly gale, which subsides the following day, leaving us to motor sail what's left of the 800-mile passage to Great Britain, where South Georgia's population of just 16 reside. The conditions are surprisingly benign. We spend our time reading, blogging and emailing. Adèle has her own intranet from which stories are uploaded twice a day, and although we're 8,000 miles from home, we can also download the Daily Mail. Here's Nigel Ingram, who project managed the yacht's build, managing a game of Scrabble in the cockpit against Adèle's champion, Georgina Swan. After 3.5 days, we get our first sight of South Georgia, a 10,000-foot-high snow-clad peak shrouded in low cloud, the glaciers cutting down to the water's edge. The remains of one of several whaling stations on the island bear testament to the lucrative whaling industry which flourished from the early 1900s for more than 60 years. By complete contrast, the local Grytviken wildlife is very much alive, and as we set off in search of a sooty albatross nestling, we encounter the local elephant and fur seal population, mildly annoyed at our presence. Some of these beasts weigh up to 2 tons and more, so they deserve respect. Using our trusty broom handles, issued by our guide Eve Billens, fur and elephant seals are kept at bay. Having run the gauntlet along the seal beach, we come across our first king penguin colony on South Georgia. By comparison to the seals, the kings are most welcoming and approach us as if to say, "Welcome to our colony." We head northwest for Pryan Island in South Georgia's Bay of Isles, where there's a rare albatross nesting ground. The wandering albatross, the biggest of the species, whose wingspan can reach nearly 3.6 meters and who regularly fly 4,000-mile round trips to bring back a single 5-pound meal for its nestling. Wandering albatross. Not only do we find almost 20 occupied nests, but we are very lucky to witness a spectacular display of courtship, staged by a large male who proves to us just how big that wingspan is. That is some wingspan. Later that day, we head for Salisbury Plain, where we witness an even more extraordinary sight, that of almost 60,000 king penguins in the second biggest colony of kings on South Georgia. Some are incubating eggs, others are looking after chicks, while others make a long trek to the shore in search of food. And across the plain lies Adèle, anchored just off Start Point.
There she lies.
There are more than 4 million fur seals on South Georgia and, like the penguins, gorge on the millions of tons of krill which exist in the Antarctic's incredibly rich waters. Here on the beach at Falkland Island they share the space with elephant seal and gentoo penguins, but one of the biggest concentrations can be found just across the bay. Adèle's owner, yACHTING, leads another expedition from the yacht, seen here anchored off Elephant Lagoon.
I'm following you!
Back in the tenders we head for the lagoon, where the water is boiling with the inquisitive fur seals, which seem to appreciate an audience as they perform around us. Just before we leave South Georgia, we hike across the Bath Peninsula to a macaroni penguin colony, a part of the island shared with reindeer introduced to South Georgia by the Norwegians more than 100 years ago. It's been tricky finding a weather window to leave South Georgia, and our routers, Commander's Weather, are predicting northerlies for a good deal of a 2,000-mile passage to Rio. It's going to be bang on the nose. It's cold but exhilarating sailing, spiced up when we get an echo from a massive iceberg on the radar. It looks like another piece of land, but we measure one side of the ice table at more than 25 miles and reckon the whole berg could be the size of the Isle of Wight. Amazingly, no one seems to know it's there, including our routers, Commander's Weather, and the British Antarctic Survey staff at Grytviken.
The Arctic is off the map.
Okay. Apart from the ice we can clearly see, we have to keep an eye open for brash and growlers, which could do a lot of damage to our aluminium hull as we power up winds.
Where would you find that sort of information?
Ice report.
But the sailing is supreme, and even with more than 14 knots on the clock at times, Adèle's motion is wonderful. The wind keeps us on our toes right to the end of the passage, and we regularly have to put reefs in and shake them out. But with press button controls, this isn't a hardship. There's just a little fine tuning and tidying up of lazy jacks needed with the drum winch. With the temperature up to 30 degrees C from just about zero a few days ago, conditions on board are sublime, and Adèle has reacted by expanding in the heat by a number of centimetres. Her aluminium hull has actually lengthened. In Rio, she'll have to have her rig retuned. We approach Rio at night, and with Mark Furkettle conning us in with radar and paper charts, he relays all that he can see on the screens to Andre, who is at the wheel with an identical screen in front of him.
Yeah, it's going to pop them on now. He's just passing a beam of the chap ahead of you. So
Just before we go, I thought you might like to see a little of Adèle below decks, moving from the guest cabin I occupied for a month, through the guest lobby to the sumptuous deck saloon, where a dining table, navigation area, comfortable seating and a desk with a network connection are located. Moving forward, we take a few steps down into the lower saloon, where there are more comfortable seating areas, a genuine wood-burning stove, Jan Erik's office and picture editing suite, and a surround sound TV area. The screen pops up in front of that picture. And so after 8.5 days we arrive in Rio. We just missed Carnival, sadly, but we reckon the culture shock would have been just too much to bear. Instead, we take an extraordinary train ride to the foot of the statue of Christ, which overlooks the anchorage and Adèle, now looking strangely small beneath Sugarloaf Mountain. For us, after an amazing 3,500-mile journey, our time with Adèle is drawing to a close, and the rigours of the Northern Hemisphere beckon.